Hi everyone, welcome to the Iowa VISTA monthly meeting for January 2017. Today's topic is VISTA Recruitment, developing an effective recruitment plan. My name is Jancy LaFollette from the Iowa State Office, and I will be your presenter / facilitator for today's call. This PowerPoint will be available at the end of the session, and today's session is being recorded. If you object, you can disconnect now. Our Iowa VISTA monthly meetings are designed to highlight a topic and provide a forum for discussion. They are not intended to be an all-encompassing resource. So please make sure that you review additional resources provided on this topic, which may include other tutorials, instructions, or other documents. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping things. All the lines are currently open. Please make sure you place us on mute so we do not hear the background noise or typing. If you join via your phone and you do not have a mute button, *6 should mute and unmute your phone line. If you joined us via your computer, there is a blue radio button at the bottom of your screen, kind of looks like a little microphone, and that will mute your computer. Please do not place us on hold during the call, as we will likely hear music from your line, which can be distracting and hard to talk over. We will have time at the end for questions. However, feel free to use the chat function on the link system in the conversation box to ask questions as we move through the presentation. Today's agenda, we will just doing a quick overview of the Iowa VISTA programs. We will talk about VISTA recruitment resources, the Iowa VISTA recruitment overview, kind of how we do recruitment in Iowa, PSO Classic versus PSO Blend, our recruitment timeline for 2017. We'll touch a little bit on VAD resources, though we did do a session on those earlier, but we will touch upon those. And then some screening tips and tools. Anticipate about an hour for this call, so we will move quickly. On the screen, you see our 13 Iowa VISTA sponsors from 2016. Currently, we're in the process of developing 2 new sponsors for 2017. Right now, we have approximately 57 members are currently serving through these programs and serving about 45 communities in Iowa. For FY17, we still do not have a budget allocation. We are in continuing resolution through April, and so we are still awaiting our FY17 budget allocation. Just so you guys know, recruitment numbers for 2016 were not achieved. We did underproduce, and we want to make sure we are setting our programs up for success, and recruitment is and will continue to be a challenge for our Iowa programs and programs across the nation. Recruitment does take time and strategic planning to be successful, so we want to make sure that your program, including your host sites, as applicable, are making recruitment a priority in the coming months. Right now is a strategic time to start your recruitment planning, and so we want to make sure that folks are well positioned for recruitment in 2017. I'm not going to read the list of our current program sponsors. I'm sure you guys can see that on the screen, but just wanted to do a quick overview for you. So just a review of some changes coming for the 2017-2018 program year. Member benefits, I will be sending out with kind of the follow-up to this call, our member benefits cheat sheet for 2017, and so these things will be outlined on that form as well. The living allowance did increase in June of 2016. Living allowance is currently $11,800. I do not anticipate a COLA for 2017. However, they come at the last minute, so I really can't anticipate them. But right now, the living allowance is $11,800 for regular, standard, or cost share members. The Education Award did increase. That was effective on October 1st of 2016. The Education Award for any members placed after October 1st of 2016 is $5,815. So this will be an increase for those of you who last recruited in September or July of 2016. Just a few things to remember for relocation. There is a travel allowance. The mileage rate is currently 23 cents per mile. Plus the shipping rate of 10 cents per mile, which includes the shipping rate of 10 cents per mile. So up to $1,000 can be given for a travel allowance. In addition to that, there's also a settling in allowance of $550. So this seems to confuse people a lot when they're talking about relocation. So relocation is for any member who is relocating to serve that has to travel, that is relocating over 50 miles. If they relocated months prior to them starting service, that doesn't count as relocation for service. It is truly relocation for service. And there is a relocation cheat sheet that we send out about this, but I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware that there are two separate allocations there. The traveling allowance, which is basically a mileage reimbursement up to $1,000 from their home of residence to where they're going, plus a $550 settling in allowance. The $550 settling in allowance does come on their first paycheck, and then the travel allowance does come later on. It's actually a travel voucher that they have to submit to the VMSU. So just be mindful of that. In addition, I do want to also point out the Social Security and citizenship verification process. This is a process that does take time. It is all e-verified or e-certified. Once you select a member to serve and they accept that position to serve, their application then goes through an e-verify process. If for some reason the system is not able to e-verify them, typically that's due to a name change, or if they're a lawful permanent resident, sometimes this triggers it. But basically additional information is needed, such as a Social Security card, and then in addition to that, birth certificate or a passport. There's a list of things to manually verify that. So I want to keep folks aware of this as we look at the recruitment deadline. The reason we have those timelines out a little bit, those nomination timelines out, is to be able to meet these criteria if they pop up. So just be mindful of that. In addition, the health benefits. Health benefits under the Affordable Care Act are a little different, and they have been since the Affordable Care Act has been implemented. We do have two options for members depending on their personal circumstance, and that is the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Care Allowance or the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan. Again, additional information will be outlined on the member benefits document that I'll be sending, but I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware. With the Affordable Care Act, it is still the responsibility of every individual to have health insurance that includes VISTA members, and so based on their personal circumstance, depending on if they can waive that or if they qualify for that, where that benefit is coming from, these plans decipher what benefits are available to them. So it is all based on that member's personal circumstance. So please keep that in mind as you're kind of working through this. So any questions? Oh, sorry. Nope, not quite yet. The next one is outside employment. So part-time employment outside of service is allowed. So we want to make sure that folks are aware of this. This was a new change for us a couple years ago, but we just want to make sure that folks are aware of this. Members cannot work for the sponsoring organization or the site. Typically, this pops up most regularly with college campuses. Just because they're sitting in a different department doesn't mean that they cannot be taking tickets for sporting events and things like that on the weekend. So any department under that sponsoring organization, they cannot be working for. So I want to make sure that folks are aware of that, or that site that they're working under. There is a form that does need to be completed and submitted. So for anyone who has, any VISTA members who have a part-time legal outside employment, there is a form that needs to be completed and submitted for that, and it can be found on the VISTA campus. I just want to bring some points to you guys' reference as you kind of build out your recruitment plan. Teleservice must be pre-approved, and there's a form to complete for that as well. So that's working from home opportunities. If there is a disclosed criminal history, we do have to have a criminal history justification form completed. So please keep in mind of that. And fingerprinting. This is a change that happened last year. It is now the member and site responsibility to make sure that members are getting their fingerprints rolled. Those fingerprints must be submitted to CNCS 30 days after the start date. This is a little different from last year. Last year it was the 5th Friday after your start date. It is now 30 days after their start date. So that timeline is a little different than previous, so just be mindful of that. It has shortened a little bit. there is still the $25 reimbursement to the member, and that will come on their first paycheck. So that is just a quick overview of maybe some of the changes or things to pay attention to for 2017. Any questions before we move on to VISTA recruitment resources? All right. So before we kind of dive into VISTA recruitment, I always like to point out where resources are. Our VISTA campus is a fantastic resource for all things VISTA, including recruitment. All of our recruitment resources are found on that first link, but there are two that I wanted to make sure I pointed out. VISTA recruitment planning resources. Right now is the best time to start planning, and so that's that second link that's listed. And then on-demand tutorials. These are tutorials for our supervisors, making sure that folks are looking at those tutorials. In the all recruitment resources, that consists of resources for stages of recruitment process, marketing resources, and kind of a guide to My AmeriCorps, which is the member side of our eGrants portal, as well as the eGrants portal support resources. Under recruitment planning resources, you're going to find recruitment checklists, some documentation to help you with that. You're going to see some recruiting or recreating a recruitment plan. I can talk today. It's Monday in my world, so I apologize. Creating a recruitment plan worksheet, and then some sample VISTA recruiting planning calendars. So these are some great resources that I just wanted to point out to folks that you might find under these tabs. Tutorials that might strike an interest with you guys include crafting a compelling service opportunity listing, writing fabulous VADs. A supervisor circle discussion is the focus on recruitment. There's also a tutorial on the elements of a recruitment plan, and then recruiting and attracting successful VISTA members. So these are just some online or on-demand tutorials that were recorded and available to folks. So I just wanted to make sure that folks are aware of these resources and to refer back to them. As I said, this session is not all-encompassing, so there are some additional resources out there as you start building your recruitment plan you'll want to pay attention to get an idea of some other ways to go out and recruit your VISTA member. So the next screen really talks about, we're going to talk a lot about the Iowa VISTA recruitment overview. And this screen shows the stages of the AmeriCorps VISTA recruitment process. So VISTA recruitment is a multi-step process and can be both rewarding and challenging. We do encourage you to utilize this set of examples and tasks to create a customized recruitment process that fits your structure and your policies. So things we talk about today are ideas, but we want you to individualize your recruitment plan and make sure that you're meeting the structure of your organization, your personnel policies, and kind of the way you guys do business. Through this, you're going to see on the screen there are the planning aspect, the marketing aspect, then you're going to screen the members, interview, select, and then obviously this little arrow that goes off to the left is the onboarding and service opportunities. But today we're just going to focus on your recruitment. In the planning process, this includes but isn't limited to determining requirements, skills, and identifying where to find those members. So right now is what you're looking at is for planning, really looking at the skills required to do the position and maybe coming up with a list of where to find those candidates. Planning also includes outlining the steps for your marketing, screening, interviewing, and selection process, so outlining that ahead of time versus when you're in the throes of it. Creating a recruitment task list and a recruitment timeline to make sure you're staying on track. Setting up tracking systems so you know who you've reached out to and how to follow up. Identifying staff who will be assisting and what their roles will be. So if you're going to have other staff or site supervisors involved in the recruitment process, kind of what those roles are going to be. And then preparing any supplemental questionnaires that you want the applicant to complete. So if there's something that you guys do in addition to the My AmeriCorps application, making sure that you have that set up and updated. Preparing interview questions. We always encourage folks to have a standard set of interview questions. Obviously each site can add to that, but some standard questions that you want all members to address, and program information to share with your applicants. So what do you want them to know about your position, the VISTA program under your sponsorship? In the marketing aspect, this is really where we fall into advertising and publicizing open positions, completing your VAD and getting that approved and ready to go, imagining what your VISTA and potential vistas for your program will look like, and tailor your outreach and opportunity listings towards this ideal person that you're looking for. Identifying strategies to reach potential applicants who match your KSAs or your knowledge, skills, and abilities, or the competencies that you're really looking for. And identify community groups and agencies that have direct contacts with those target groups that you're looking to reach. In the marketing kind of phase of recruitment, this is where you're going to develop your message, write your opportunity listing for the My AmeriCorps website, based on your list of competencies, the VAD that you've created, and obviously your ideal candidate that you're looking for. So these are just kind of the phases of recruitment that we're going through, and this is all part of a successful recruitment plan and making sure that folks are aware of the time that this takes to do a successful recruitment plan. Screening and interviewing and selecting are also pieces of recruiting. We're going to dive into those, break those down a little bit more in some of our later monthly meetings. But I just wanted to touch upon them here. This is really to focus on the recruitment planning, but screening, interviewing, and selecting are also integral parts of making sure you have the right members on board. So in screening, you're going to find out which applicants are committed and qualified, conduct pre-screening activities such as phone calls or webinars. You're going to narrow your list of applicants and really work with your supervisors or your sub-site supervisors as to where vistas will serve, which vistas will serve successfully in which positions. Interviewing is really getting to know your top candidates, conducting your first, second, and third round of interviews if possible, and really identifying your top pick and possible backup candidates. This is something that a lot of folks are running into, or they ran into last year, is we picked a top candidate, we told everybody that, you know, you're not selected, and then our top candidate backs out, that we hadn't actually confirmed with them that they wanted it. So always making sure there's some backup candidates kind of in the query is a good way to go forward. And then finally, selecting the right applicant, conducting reference checks is a key aspect of that. And then collecting the nomination paperwork. So then of course you nominate, onboard, and they serve. So it sounds so simple, but we're going to break this down a little bit further. There is a question that just came into the chat functionality. It's from Nicole, and she asked, do you recommend including the living stipend amount in the posting? Nicole, that's a great question. Some folks do, because it is non-negotiable. It just gives them an idea of how much they're going to be making as a VISTA member. Most folks do leave it off, though, and that's something they do in the pre-screening interview process, is just making sure that the candidates understand what that is. So some folks put it in there just to be upfront, but I would say most folks do not include that. So that is a judgment call on you. If that's something that seems to be a deterrent as you're getting to that pre-screening interview and folks don't understand that it is only, you know, it's a non-negotiable living allowance for under $12,000. So you can definitely do that if you choose to. Any other questions kind of about the general recruitment process and the stages of that? All right. So next we're going to do just a brief overview of the Iowa nomination process. This is kind of how we do the nomination process. So a few key points to review. First, as you guys know, outside of the eGrants portal, so things that you submit to us that are not in eGrants include the Iowa VISTA Sponsor Nomination Form. This is a form that we have created. It actually asks for the member's name, where they're going to be serving, the site supervisor's contact information, if they're going to be relocating, how you want them coded as a standard or a cost-share member. Basically, I'm collecting information from this in order to enroll them in our system. These are things that we have to put into the system, and it's just better for me to collect it up front and cross-reference it than it is to kind of call you each individual individually. So that's where that form comes from. That is an Iowa-specific nomination form, and so that is something that we use. It's outside of the eGrants portal. The What to Know Before Beginning Service is a form that members kind of initial off on, if you guys recall. It's a couple pages long, and it really kind of goes through the terms, conditions, and benefits of the VISTA program, making sure they understand kind of the ins and outs, what the living allowance is going to be, who they're going to be reporting to, what their hours of operation are going to be. Each member does have to take a terms, conditions, and benefits online tutorial prior to being sworn in as a VISTA member. This things to know or what to know before beginning service was something the Iowa State Office created years ago. And really it's a form that's used as a conversation piece with you, just to make sure you've covered everything with them, and for them to actually understand what you've discussed. So again, they initial off on it. It's just kind of a great back and forth to kind of go over things. It's really a nice checks and balance tool. Third on the list is the on-site orientation and training. This is a plan that you develop as the VISTA program sponsor or the VISTA site. The reason we asked for this during the nomination process, it's a couple of years ago, we got a lot of complaints from VISTA members saying, I got there and they had no idea what to do with me. And so we now ask for this ahead of time, making sure that you have an orientation plan set up, you understand when the VISTA member is starting, and you know what to do with them when they hit your door. And so we ask for this ahead of time just to make sure that everybody's in line and everybody has an idea of what's happening. So if for some reason the site supervisor gets sick that day, the designated site supervisor gets sick that day, someone else can step into that role and say, okay, we're supposed to cover these things with you today. Let's walk through that. So really it's just kind of, again, a checks and balance on the onboarding process and making sure that's set up ahead of time and not as the member's hitting your door. And then finally, the criminal history justification form. This is as applicable. This is available per request. So if you do have a member or a nominee who discloses a criminal history on their application, we do have to do a justification form for it. And so we do ask that you request that if there is something noted on the application. If you don't ask for it ahead of time, and I see that I do review every application that comes into our office. All nominations, not every application, let me take that back. Every nomination that comes into our office. And so if someone does disclose a criminal history, I am going to ask for that justification form. And it just delays the enrollment process further if you guys don't see that ahead of time. So just be mindful of that. Within the eGrants portal, the member completes the member application. You guys review that. 2 references must be completed. You can override that, but you don't just want to override that and say, I overrode the references. But we want to make sure that you are putting some information in there. So don't just override this. Put some information in that reference saying that you did talk to them and that you reviewed this information with a reference. The sponsor evaluation is the last tab in eGrants, and that's where you reject or extend an offer to the applicant. It does ask some standard questions, just does an overview of a review with them, and so make sure you're collecting that information. So we can also, as we assess the members, as we review them, something we look at too. The VISTA assignment description does need to be attached to each member nomination, and so those do need to be set up in the eGrants portal ahead of time. And then the citizenship and Social Security verification, as I already talked about, is through an e-certify process. So a few things. You do want to start your review and interview selection process at least 2 weeks in advance of the nomination deadline. We encourage folks not to wait until the last minute because things do pop up. The nomination deadlines are always at close of business. So if it's due on today, January 17th, you have until 4:30, 5 o'clock to get those nominations submitted to us. Please keep in mind it does take approximately 48 hours minimum to have a candidate's citizenship and Social Security verified. And so sometimes folks like to push our nomination deadlines, and that just delays our processes. So just keep that in mind. We do set deadlines for a reason. There is a little wiggle room to get folks up and going. However, each PSO does have a limited space for everyone, not just in Iowa, but for nationwide. So it is a first come, first served basis. So the reason we set the deadlines, there is some method behind the madness, I promise. With the references, as I said, make sure you're actually reviewing those references. Talk with the folks who have not completed the form and give us some detailed notes. Nothing is more disheartening than when I see a reference that says, we don't recommend this person. I ask the sponsor about it and they're like, oh, I didn't even see that. make sure you're reviewing those references. And, even going above and beyond that if you want to, going back to past employment, things like that. VADs, make sure you enter those prior to selecting the member. And just remember, just a reminder, just because your service opportunity posting status is in the approved status in the eGrants portal, this does not mean it is accepting applications and people can to apply to it. So keep that in mind. Service opportunities, the date of accepting applications until determines if the posting is live or not. So if you log into eGrants portal, you look at your recruitment work basket and you see that all of your service opportunities are still approved, it doesn't mean that they're live. Basically, that accepting application until will determine if that posting is still live and people can see it on the My AmeriCorps end. If the date has passed, the applicants cannot apply to the opportunity. In addition, if the date has passed and you have nominated a candidate but they have not yet officially accepted the offer to serve in the system, they will not be able to see the opportunity, and therefore the service opportunity must be reopened for the candidate to accept the offer to serve. So keep that in mind. That service opportunity posting does have to be open in order for VISTA members, VISTA nominees to select or to officially accept the offer to serve. So any questions kind of about our nomination process? I know that's kind of quick, but information is sent out with you guys each time, or with our invites each time, and so you guys should have an idea of what is due, but hopefully that was just a quick overview for folks. Any questions? All right. So now we're going to spend some time talking about PSO Classic versus PSO Blend. In 2016, PSO Blend was rolled out. It was supposed to be a pilot project. It was not. It was actually rolled out full force in 2016. And so I want to talk a little bit and make sure folks understand the differences between the Classic and the PSO Blend. So we're going to start with PSO Blend. PSO Blend is a remote PSO. PSO, stands for Pre-Service Orientation, for those of you who are not quite familiar with our acronyms yet. So PSO is a pre-service orientation. PSO Blend is a remote webinars versus attending a training in person. Typically, the PSO Blend is spread out over 4 weeks, and it is done in conjunction with on-site orientation and training, or the OSAT. Site supervisors are asked to dedicate time to participate in specific webinars, so keep that in mind. There is some time dedication for site supervisors. This is a combination of real-time and then self-paced pre-recorded courses for members to complete. There's also some homework assignments for them to complete. There's a lot of different aspects of the PSO Blend to get them up and going. The oath of service is administered on the first day of service, and therefore VISTA members start, or their service term actually starts on that first day. So for, let's say their start date was today, January 17th, they would have a webinar in the afternoon, they would be sworn into service, and in the system today would be their first day of service. PSO blends with this option, excuse me, you want to make sure that the candidates you enroll in the PSO Blend are positioned to succeed in a virtual mode. Not everyone is proficient in being able to do the virtual model, and so we want to make sure that folks are aware of that. They do have to have an English proficiency. They have to have a strong connectivity and equipment, so they do have to have a laptop or a desktop at their service site on their first day. That sometimes can be a challenge for folks, getting them connected to the internet on the first day. And they need to be at ease with computer learning. Again, this skill set not everybody has. I struggle with it myself. But we want to make sure that folks are aware that this is some criteria for the PSO Blend. If you are concerned that a candidate will not succeed in the PSO Blend that you've nominated them for, please contact me and we'll walk through to determine if there's a PSO Classic event that they may be able to attend that might not be something that's in our region. We do have to seek approval for that. It takes a while, so you do have to have a candidate in hand, but there are some alternative options available for there might be, not always, there might be some alternative options available for candidates who are not positioned for success in a virtual model. So keep that in mind. So that is kind of PSO Blend in a nutshell. How that compares to PSO Classic. So the Classic, with this option, members actually attend a 4-day pre-service orientation that is outside of the state. For us, it's typically in Chicago or Minnesota. The 4 days do include travel days. The VISTA headquarters, VISTA, pays for the member to travel. There are approximately 200 other VISTA members who attend from the region, and so members have the opportunity to mix and mingle with other folks. With the PSO Blend, there's anywhere from 200 to 300 VISTA members on those webinars, and so blending and talking to people is sometimes a challenge. So that's Blend versus Classic. With the PSO Classic, the oath of service is administered on the last day of PSO, and member service term officially starts the following day. So this is also a different aspect. So if the PSO ends on a Friday, and then their official start date with VISTA is on a Saturday, and then they actually report to their service site the following Monday, typically. So not all PSO Classics end on Friday, but most of them do. So just keep that in mind. Members do serve 365 days, and so that when their start date starts can affect it does affect when their service ends. The nomination deadline for the PSO Classics is further out to account for the travel and some of the prep time to get members actually physically to a PSO. So that is kind of one of the reasons. That's also a big difference between those two, and one of the reasons we ask for those nominations so far out. In 2017, we will be filling the PSO Classics events first, and if needed, the PSO Blend events may be available. So in our planning for recruitment, we are looking to fill PSO Classics first, and the PSO Blends will be available later. As you guys have seen, hopefully, the proposed timeline for FY17 has come out. PSO Classic and PSO Blend events are both listed on there. And so I just wanted to make sure that folks are aware that that's all of the events for our region. Each program is invited to specific PSOs. So we have compiled that list, and that will be coming out this week. So you will be invited to a specific PSO to recruit for. Typically, it's around the same time when your members started this year. So if your members all started in July, we'll most likely have you recruit for the July PSO. And so that's just to kind of keep that going. For those of you who might have had members who started in September, we have a September PSO Blend. We've actually bumped you back to August to make sure to try to fill our Classics first. So that's where you're going to see some differentiation there in when members started this last year to when your members in 2017-2018 program year will start. So keep that in mind as you look at the invite. Again, there is a method to our madness, I swear, but be on the lookout for those invites this week. So just keep that in mind as we roll through this. Next, we're going to go over the timeline quickly. The FY17 PSO calendar had been announced by VISTA headquarters. All the dates and resources are subject to federal appropriations for 2017. As I said earlier, we do not have those appropriations yet. We are currently on a continuing resolution until April. However, we are planning and moving forward. PSO Classics will take place in April, June, July, August, as they historically have. That is our plan. And the PSO Blend options will also be available. Each program will be invited to nominate members to attend a particular PSO. All dates and resources are subject to federal appropriations. I have to throw that in just to make sure folks understand that. July is our largest recruitment month, so almost everyone recruits for July. I want folks to keep that in mind. So around that time frame, so the July PSO is July 25th through the 28th. Currently planned for Minneapolis, Minnesota. The nomination deadline is June 12th. Lots of moving parts will happen during the June 12th nomination deadline. So keep that in mind as you're recruiting. The most accurate information you can get to me really helps expedite that process for all parties involved. And so try to make sure that your nomination packets or your nomination paperwork is complete. Planning timelines were included in the tentative recruitment timeline to help you with your own planning. So I did put a few planning timelines in there, those are just to help you guys. Those aren't strict, and that's not something that you have to meet each one of those, but it does help you to reach that nomination deadline. As I said earlier, each PSO is open to not only our office and our state, but other states in our region and across the country. And so typically it is a first come, first serve basis. So the timelines are needed, or the deadlines are needed, to make sure that we're meeting our our recruitment goals. So I just wanted to make sure that folks are aware of that. A few of the planning timelines, just for example, I'm going to use July as my example for those planning timelines that I talked about. If you want to build your recruitment plan, so we talked about building out this recruitment plan and kind of looking at what needs to be done between now and then, you want to build that in reverse. So if the PSO is July 25th through the 28th and the nomination deadline is June 12th, you want to look at, you should probably have a final decision and start collecting paperwork the week prior to that, which is about June 5th, to give you some time to get paperwork collected, make sure things look good. Interviews and selections should probably start at least the week prior to that, so you have some time to interview, which is May 29th. Applications should be due, about a week prior to that, which is May 22nd. And then the service opportunity posting, you want to give you guys as much time as possible to find the find a good candidate. We encourage everyone to have postings up by February 1st, which is why your recruitment, what dates or what PSOs you'll be recruiting for, are going to come out this week, so you guys can get everything up by February 1st so you have an idea. So again, these are all planning out. If you think about kind of the recruitment process and what needs to take place, you do want to plan out. You don't want to wait until June 10th to see if applications have come in. You want to plan out a little bit farther in advance. So just keep that in mind as you're building out the recruitment timeline. The ones listed on here, April, June, July, and August, are PSO Classics. So that is when the member actually does attend a physical event in somewhere other than the state of Iowa. You will notice that the June PSO is in Columbus, Ohio. That is different. Typically, Chicago and Minnesota are our big places that we go to. And July, again, is our big recruitment.
Oh, that is
so keep that in mind.
awesome.
Oh, is there a question?
Babe, I'm so proud of you.
Was there a question on the line? I hear someone talking. Okay, just making sure. All right, so the recruitment timeline for PSO blends, June, July, August, and September. There are PSO blends in there as well. Those nomination deadlines are a little closer to the actual PSO, so we want to make sure that folks are aware of that. Again, this is all in that proposed timeline, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware there is a difference between the Classic and the PSO, and the Classics are really what we're shooting for. So I want to make sure that folks keep that in mind when those invites to the PSOs come out. You understand what you're recruiting for. Some VAD resources for you. There's a sample VAD, a blank VAD template, and creative effective VADs tutorials that I do encourage folks to look at. During our November monthly meeting, we discussed VADs in greater detail, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. However, just a few things to highlight with VADs. You will need to update your VAD for each position in the 2017 program year. You will need to delineate the work for each year, so making sure that your VADs are updated and moving forward. So task in year one, for example, creating systems or other startup tasks, might be substantially different from those in year 2 or 3, which is like training volunteers, train the trainer activities, and then winding down projects and building that sustainability. So keep that in mind as you're developing your VADs. You are going to identify how the project will progress and demonstrate the specific plan for achieving that. So really VADs, through the VADs, you're going to be building off of the previous years to ensure that sustainability. So keep that in mind. Don't just take the VAD from last year and copy and paste it into this year. You do want to look at how you're building that out. The VADS is the foundation on which the entire VISTA member experience is built, from recruitment to end of service. So use the VADS to manage, support, and evaluate your members. That is a key responsibility of VISTA supervisors. You can use the VADS during recruitment. That actually is how you build out what type of candidate you're looking for, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, or the competencies that you want. So the VADS really can help you in recruitment. Use the VADS when doing your interview, making sure that the member understands the roles and the tasks that they're going to need to perform. So just keep that in mind as you move through this. Again, VISTA resources are out there, or VISTA assignment description is what a VAD stands for. VISTA assignment description resources are available to you, and I do encourage you to take advantage of those. Before we go into screening tips and tools, any questions so far? All right. So some screening resources, interviewing resources, and selection resources are available to you guys. Again, VISTA Campus, great place to get resources for VISTA. Screening applicants begins from the point of first contact and continues during the interview process, and is completed once you have checked the applicant's references and they are cleared through the CNCS criminal history check process. So through screening ensures that applicants qualify for VISTA service will persist throughout their service year, and most important of all, will be a good fit for your community and your organization. So we do encourage folks to use screening tools. Again, we're going to diverge more into this really later on, but I want to make sure that folks are aware of these resources that are out there. Things to be mindful of as you're looking at applicants. There are some minimum standards of eligibility that our members do have to meet. So first, they must be at least 18 years of age upon entering VISTA training. There is no upper age limit, but they do have to be at least 18 on their first day of PSO or VISTA service. They do need to be a U.S. citizen or have a permanent resident status, so they do have to have that. We do a National Sex Offender Registry database check on all of our VISTA candidates, and they cannot be listed on that as having been convicted of a sex-related crime. They do need to be willing to submit fingerprints for a criminal history background check. Be in a position to offer full-time service for 1 year without regard to regular working hours. Most of our members do work the same hours of the sponsoring organization that they're serving with. However, we do want to VISTA members or applicants do have to understand this is a 12-month commitment. It is a full-time commitment. And so we want to make sure that folks are being in a position that they can do that at this point in their life. They do need to be able to be able to relate previous education, training, military, or work experience, and demonstrate other relevant skills or interests necessary to perform the specific VISTA assignment. So making sure that they can articulate that in their application and their interviewing is key. They do need to be willing, to the maximum extent practical, to live among and at the economic level of the low-income people served by the VISTA project. Hence, we have a living allowance that is $11,880 per year. This is not a lot of money. This is actually the poverty level for a single person in the state of Iowa, and so these are set by the federal government, and that's what we go for. We have a lot of members who are always like, oh, the pay is so low. It is a poverty program. We want to keep that in mind. VISTA is a poverty program, and so the reason that we set it so low is that the members actually who are serving at the same economic threshold as those clients that they might be working with in the community. And again, understanding that VISTAs serve on a full-time basis and that the living allowance is non-negotiable. So just keep that in mind as you're screening members and making sure that they fit the criteria of the position. So again, screening tips and tools, more to come on this, but I do always like to point folks to the resources that are available to them. So just a few things to consider before nominating your VISTA candidate. Consider the following criteria. References. Be sure the references meet the applicant's application requirements. Look for a balance among professional, educational, or personal references. Our application does not require a professional reference, so there are some personal references in there. However, if it's a pretty weak reference, you can ask to see other references, so just keep that in mind. Try to get an understanding of the applicant as a whole, and follow up with phone calls that may be necessary. So sometimes people references complete that form online, and it's I say weak, but it's very broad, and so it might be worth a phone call to follow up just to get more detail. Look at employment. Past job experience may be relevant to the VISTA assignment. Look at education. Matching the applicant's academic background with the sponsor's specific needs is highly desirable, so look at that. Military status. Significant experience or education gained through military service should be fully considered in recommending an applicant for VISTA service, so we want to make sure that folks are considering military status, as well as community service and volunteer activities. In some ways, this information is the heart of the VISTA application, and making sure that folks are are engaged in their community. The motivational statement, I read most everybody's motivational statement, and they range, I will be honest. So read this portion of the application carefully. Ideally, an applicant who is motivated is someone who we're looking for both personal and professional growth. So VISTA, as I've always said, is a win-win-win situation. Obviously, it's a win for the organization that they're serving with. You guys have a set of goals and criteria that you want met, and the VISTA member you're bringing on board is going to work on those. It's going to be we want it to be a win for the VISTA member. Sometimes they have had no previous experience, and so that can be a challenge, but it's a great professional development opportunity for them. So we want this to be a win for that member. We also want it to be a win for the community. So again, the reason VISTAs are here is to build sustainability in the organizations and the communities in which they're serving. So we do want to get the member, make sure the member is involved in the community, and making sure that it is a win for all three of those categories. And then of course, readiness to serve. You want to gauge if the applicant is truly ready to serve as a VISTA for 1 year. I've often said that VISTA sometimes has to be at the right time. Not everyone is a right fit for the program. Sometimes this just isn't the right time in their life to do it. So keeping that in mind as you kind of move forward through your applications. Things to keep in mind, you cannot ask about medical issues. It is not appropriate or legal to ask whether an applicant has a disability prior to recommendation to select or not select that person. So just keep that in mind. In addition, children and dependents. It is not appropriate to ask prior to selection whether an applicant has children or dependents. Applicants should be advised, however, that CNCS assumes no financial responsibility, including health support, for dependents of VISTA. So our health benefits do not go on to dependents. Those are just for the individual member. So keep that in mind. We are rolling through a lot of this, but the things I do want to point out is VISTA recruitment planning is a big part of your success. So our folks who actually build out a recruitment plan, and again, those resources on the VISTA campus are key to that. Look at them. Make sure that you're spending some time in building out that recruitment plan. Look at who you want to be a VISTA member. Where can you expand your reach into the VISTA recruitment process? If you have contacts at schools or universities, those are key as well. And I always say word of mouth is still the #1 way to recruit members. So tell your board of directors, tell all your staff, tell your VISTA members to tell anybody who will listen to them about the positions coming up. And so just make sure that you're spreading that word about what's happening, because typically it's my brother whose friend served told me it was a great experience, and so I looked into it. We still get those to this day, even with all of our social media and outreach and all this stuff going on. Word of mouth is still the #1 way to do that. So any questions about any of the stuff that I quickly covered, going through VISTA recruitment, kind of how we do recruitment here in Iowa, what's coming up, some changes for 2017, and the resources that are available to you on the campus. Your lines are open, so *6 will mute and unmute your line. If you can also chat in the conversation box, or if you would like, if you joined us via your computer, you can also unmute your radial button and you can talk to us that way. So any questions so far? Okay. So a few upcoming VISTA headquarters trainings that I want to make sure you guys are aware of. There's a vistacampus.gov, the supervisor webinars. That's where you're going to find any supervisor webinars that are coming up. Today there was actually one at 1 o'clock talking about on-site orientation and training, and so that is where you're going to find those. The vistacampus.gov/leader webinars, that is for our VISTA leaders who are on the call today. Those are where some are scheduled out there as well. January 27th, today's the 17th, 27th is our VISTA Leader webinar on coaching for performance and potential. So that's for VISTA leaders. Supervisors are also welcome to join these. February 21st is the VISTA Supervisor webinar on VISTA Recruitment. So VISTA Recruitment is a big talk right now. Obviously, we're gearing up for recruitment and making sure that folks are well positioned to have some successful recruitment in 2017. And so I do encourage folks to take some time now to plan and make sure that they have a plan in place for recruitment. Again, invites will be coming out to your specific PSO that you're recruiting for will be later on this week. But keep in mind that we do want to get folks up and rolling. We do encourage all postings to be live by February 1st. Your VISTA postings, so just an FYI, for those of you who have questions, so you will all be doing a continuation application for my current VISTA sponsors. Continuation applications will be coming out. Those notifications will also be coming out this week, so we're doing things dually here. Continuation applications will be due on or around the end of March. Depending on when your M of A, your Memorandum of Agreement with our agency ends. Most of you end in May, however there are some that end earlier than that. So whenever your Memorandum of Agreement ends with CNCS is when we're going to build out when your continuation is due. Keep in mind that any service opportunity postings that you put out on the VISTA Campus, on the My AmeriCorps resource, that those will carry forward to your next grant application. So service opportunity postings can go up well before your continuation application is approved. I will say, unless I've had a discussion with you about not continuing your VISTA program in 2017, 2018, or if your program is coming to an end in 2017, then you will be doing a continuation application and it will be going forward. So keep that in mind. You can do those postings prior to that continuation application being approved. And so that's why we're saying February 1st. The one thing that will not carry forward is your VADs. So your VADs should not be for the 2017-2018 program year, should be created outside of the eGrants portal. Those will be updated through your continuation application process. We do ask for those outside of the portal for planning purposes, but then those will be, you can then upload those once your continuation is approved. Those then can be uploaded into the system. So VADs right now should only be for your currently serving VISTA members, and so those in the system cannot be updated until the application is approved, but your postings can carry forward. So people always say, oh, I'll wait until the continuation application is approved before I get my postings out there. Please don't. That is not a best practice. We do want to make sure that folks are getting that stuff out there early. A lot of our program participants are college-age students, not all. And that might not be the skill set that you're looking for either, but a lot of folks are college students, and so Around February, March is when a lot of folks start looking for what are they going to do once school ends. And so we want to make sure that those postings are up there and available. In addition, our VISTA headquarters will be doing a big push this summer for VISTA recruitment. Social media, some other means that they're going to be pushing out. I don't know all the details at this point, just got notification of it this morning. And so we want to make sure that those postings are live, and so folks can be tying into those. So just keep that in mind. Again, postings, accepting applications until date needs to be is the date of when that that posting will no longer be live. So make sure those are up to date. So any questions so far? We're almost at the top of the hour, and I just wanted to say our next monthly meeting is going to be February 21st. It's going to be on the VISTA continuation application process and the overview process of that. So we will have some set time to discuss the VISTA continuation applications for those of you who will be going through that process. So next month is going to be continuation applications, and then from there we're going to be really breaking down the recruitment process a little bit in further detail. So please join us on the 21st. I will be sending out reminders as the date grows closer. It should be in an Outlook calendar reminder for you, and our calls are always at 2 p.m. typically on that Monday. However, today we had to move it to Tuesday because of the MLK Day holiday. So any questions about that? And then finally, Vista Campus and our AmeriCorps website with the /Vista, there's some great resources. So questions in regards to VISTA recruitment planning, I do encourage folks again to go through the VISTA resources that I went over on slide 6. Slide 6 shows the VISTA campus. Don't look at the screen, it might make you dizzy as I flick through everything. The VISTA recruitment resources. So again, recruitment planning resources, the on-demand tutorials. Those are some great resources that are out there. There are some VISTA recruitment checklist documents, creating a VISTA recruitment plan worksheet, then sample VISTA recruitment planning calendars for folks. Those are all under this VISTA planning resources. So keep that in mind. As you guys start building out your recruitment plans, please take the time now to do this. It does take substantial time and energy to be successful. And so we want to make sure that folks are looking at this now rather than later. So any final questions before we depart today? Again, this session is recorded. I will be sending out the PowerPoint presentation at the end of or later on today, once I can get it uploaded onto our YouTube channel. And then I will also be sending out the member benefits cheat sheet and the PowerPoint and the recording. Any questions before we log off? Okay. Seeing none, I want to thank everybody for your time today. We are just at the top of the hour, so thank you so much. If you need anything, please give me a call, and I will be happy to address any questions that you might have. Thanks again. This concludes our monthly meeting of the Iowa AmeriCorps VISTA program, and the topic was VISTA recruitment. Thank you.